The DNA results arrived 3 minutes before he walked out on his family forever. William Brown stared at the notification on his phone. Confidential DNA analysis results. He read the subject line once, then slipped the phone back into his jacket pocket without opening it. Whatever it was could wait. Tonight was the beginning of his new life. Inside Harbor Lights restaurant, Vanessa Morgan sat near the window. Diamond earrings. Perfect smile. She represented everything Williams told himself he was missing. Passion. Freedom. A future with no obligations and no weight. He had been lying to his wife for a year to be here. He sat across from Vanessa, and for a while they talked about nothing that mattered. Vacation plans. Luxury apartments. The future they were going to build together. Then Vanessa set down her glass and asked the question she had been waiting months to ask. When are you going to tell her? Williams knew exactly who she meant. Sarah, his wife of 31 years. The woman who worked double shifts while he built his company from nothing. The woman who gave up her own dreams so their children would have opportunities. The woman sitting at home right now who had no idea what was coming. Soon, Williams said. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Soon isn't an answer. I'll tell her tonight. The words left his mouth before he fully thought them through. Vanessa froze. Then a slow smile crossed her face, and she reached across the table. I love you. I love you too. Neither of them noticed the elderly man seated near the bar. Silver hair. Sharp eyes. He had been watching Williams since he walked in. He had, in fact, been watching Williams for 33 years, waiting for exactly the right moment. That moment was coming, faster than anyone knew. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell us where you are watching from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now so you never miss a story like this one. 20 miles away, Sarah Brown folded laundry in a house that had slowly gone cold. Williams still came home, still sat at the dinner table, still slept beside her. But he had already left in every way that actually mattered. She had felt it for months. She just hadn't let herself say it out loud. Her daughter Ashley came downstairs carrying a laptop. 27 years old. Sharp. Quietly furious in the way only a daughter who loves her mother can be. Mom, have you noticed Dad acting differently? Before Sarah could answer, her son James appeared in the doorway. The look on his face told her everything. I saw him with someone, James said. 3 weeks ago. A woman. Sarah didn't fall apart. She didn't even look surprised. She simply set down the shirt she was folding and stared at the wall. The signs had been there for months. She had chosen not to see them. She had run out of that choice. At 11:30, Williams came home to find Sarah sitting alone in the living room. No lights, no television, just silence and a small envelope on the coffee table between them. Williams opened it. 3 photographs. Him and Vanessa entering a restaurant, holding hands, kissing beside her car. His stomach dropped. How long? Sarah asked. Williams looked at the floor. A year. Sarah closed her eyes. A year. 365 days of dinner together. Birthday celebrations. Family holidays. Sleeping in the same bed. All of it a lie. You're leaving, she said. It wasn't a question. Williams didn't look up. Yes. One word. 31 years reduced to one word. Upstairs, Ashley and James stood frozen at the top of the staircase, listening, unable to move. Below them their family was ending, and there was nothing either of them could do. The next morning Williams packed 2 suitcases before sunrise. When he carried them downstairs, Sarah was already at the kitchen table. She hadn't slept. A cold cup of coffee sat untouched beside her. He walked to the door. She didn't stop him. She didn't beg. She looked at him one last time and said 4 words. I hope she's worth it. Williams picked up his keys and walked out. The front door closed. Sarah listened to his car leave the driveway. She waited until the sound disappeared completely. Then she let herself cry. Across town, Vanessa watched his car pull into her building's parking lot from the penthouse balcony. A smile spread across her face. Finally, after months of careful pressure and perfectly placed words, he had done exactly what she needed him to do. William stepped out with his suitcases. Vanessa kissed him. "It's over." "It's over," he said. She held him. But over his shoulder her expression shifted. Just for a second, something cold and deliberate moved behind her eyes. Because Vanessa Morgan was not thinking about love. She was thinking about the $4 million she had already moved, and the additional transfer she still needed, and the folder sitting in her locked bedroom drawer. The one labeled DNA file. The one Williams could never, under any circumstances, be allowed to open. The first few days in Vanessa's penthouse felt like freedom. No responsibilities. No arguments. No weight. Williams told himself this was exactly what he wanted. But freedom was quieter than he expected. On the fifth morning, he sat at the kitchen counter staring at his phone. His thumb hovered over Ashley's name. He didn't call. He set the phone face down and said nothing. Vanessa noticed. "You're thinking about them. They're still my family. You can't keep looking backward." The words were perfectly smooth, patient, rehearsed, and something about that bothered Williams in a way he couldn't yet name. Meanwhile, Ashley wasn't grieving. She was working. She sat across from Richard Hayes, a private investigator with 25 years of experience, and watched him open a folder on the desk between them. "You were right," Richard said. "Vanessa Morgan has been lying about almost everything." He laid out photographs. Different cities, different men, different years. Each one showed Vanessa beside a wealthy businessman. Each relationship followed the same pattern. Charm, intimacy, large financial transfers. Then the man disappeared from her life, poorer and broken. Ashley brought everything to her mother that same evening. Bank statements, transaction records. Nearly $4 million moved out of Williams's accounts over 6 months. All of it funneled into companies connected to one name. Vanessa Morgan. Sarah stared at the documents. "He gave her all of this?" "He doesn't know yet," Ashley said quietly. "But I think there's something even bigger she's hiding." She was right. In a windowless office inside an unmarked building across the city, Vanessa sat across from a man in a gray suit. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in 3 days. "He transferred another $2 million, the man said. Vanessa nodded. "Good. What about the final phase?" "We proceed." The man hesitated. "And the DNA results? You're certain he hasn't opened them?" For the first time, Vanessa's composure cracked. "Just slightly. He hasn't opened them. If he does, he won't." The man lowered his voice anyway. "But if he does, if he ever finds out the truth about who he actually is, about your mother, about what happened 33 years ago." Vanessa stood. Her voice went flat and final. "Then everything is over." That same night, Williams attended a corporate event alone. He stood near the bar, barely present, his mind drifting back to Sarah and the kids, when a voice beside him said simply, "Beautiful evening." Williams turned. The elderly man from the restaurant stood beside him. Silver hair, sharp, quiet eyes. Williams felt something strange pass through him. An inexplicable recognition he couldn't explain. "I've heard a great deal about you," the man said. Before Williams could respond, a colleague pulled him aside. When he turned back, the old man was gone. No sign of him anywhere in the room. Williams couldn't shake it for the rest of the night. He returned to the penthouse late. The main lights were off, but a thin line of light showed beneath Vanessa's office door. He approached quietly. The door was not fully closed. Through the gap, he saw Vanessa standing at her filing cabinet. She pulled a thick folder from the drawer, looked at it for a moment, then shoved it to the back and shut the drawer quickly. Williams had only seen 3 words on the label. DNA file. He stepped back. His heartbeat was loud in his ears. A floorboard creaked. Vanessa spun around and found him standing in the hallway. For one unguarded second, pure panic crossed her face. Then it was gone, replaced by a warm smile. "You're home early." Williams said nothing. He looked at the drawer, then at her, then at the drawer again. Something had shifted, something he couldn't undo. Once you see the crack, you cannot unsee it. Williams called Ashley the next morning while Vanessa was out. "I need you to tell me everything you've found." An hour later, he sat at Ashley's kitchen table, surrounded by documents. Photographs of Vanessa with other men. Financial records. The $4 million. And at the center of everything, a sealed envelope from a genetic testing laboratory. His DNA results. Ashley had requested a copy when he wouldn't open his own. "Read it," Ashley said. He did. "Then read it again." The man who raised him. The man he had buried 3 years ago. The man whose name he carried and whose values had shaped everything he was. Not his biological father. Williams sat in silence for a long time. "There's more," Ashley said carefully. She placed an old hospital record on the table. A maternity ward file. A nurse's name at the top. "The nurse involved in your disappearance as a newborn," Ashley said. She had a daughter. Williams stared at the document. Her name was Vanessa Morgan. The room went absolutely still. Every conversation replayed in an instant. Vanessa's careful questions about his childhood, her interest in family history, her patience, her precision, her control. It had never been love. It had been research. He had not been a man she fell for. He had been a target she selected. That night he confronted her. Vanessa was standing in the living room when he walked in. She looked at his face and knew immediately. No performance this time. No smile. The mask was gone. Williams placed the DNA results on the table. Then the photographs. Then the documents. Vanessa looked at them without moving. "My mother was the nurse," she said finally. Her voice was quiet. "She was involved the night you were taken." Williams felt the floor shift beneath him. "She spent the rest of her life trying to fix what she was part of. When she was dying, she left behind a journal. Evidence. She told me to find you, to return what was taken. And instead you stole $4 million. Vanessa closed her eyes. There was no defense, and she knew it. "You used me," Williams said. "From the beginning. Everything was a lie." A tear moved down her face. "Not everything." "Don't." "Williams, the woman I thought I left my family for doesn't exist." His voice broke on the last word. Not with anger, with something far worse. She never existed. He turned and walked out. And this time, it was Vanessa listening to the sound of a door closing behind someone who wasn't coming back. The Carter Foundation Gala drew 300 guests. Business leaders, investors, journalists. The kind of room where reputations are made and destroyed over a single evening. Williams sat near the front looking like a man who had survived something he still couldn't fully name. Vanessa was gone. Most of the money was gone. His sense of who he was had been dismantled and rebuilt. And somewhere in the city sat an elderly man with silver hair who kept appearing and disappearing like a half-remembered dream. Then the ballroom doors opened. Ashley walked in first, James behind her, and behind them, Vanessa Morgan. No designer clothing, no confidence. She looked pale and frightened, and like someone who had run out of places to hide. The room noticed immediately. Whispers moved through the crowd like a current. Ashley walked directly to the stage. She took the microphone without waiting for an introduction. "Good evening. Before tonight continues, there is something everyone in this room deserves to know." The crowd went quiet. 3 months ago, the woman standing at the back of this room manipulated my father into leaving his family. She used that access to steal nearly $4 million through a network of shell companies. Ashley paused. But the theft is not the story. Complete silence. The real story began 33 years ago, and it starts with my father. Williams felt his pulse in his throat. The man who raised my father loved him without condition. He was a good man and a real father in every way that matters. Ashley looked directly at Williams. But he was not Williams's biological parent. Shock moved through the room. 300 people held perfectly still. My father received DNA results months ago. He never opened them. So I opened mine. She held up the report. And what I found changed everything. A photograph appeared on the screen behind her. The elderly man. Silver hair. Quiet eyes. Watching. This man has been searching for my father for 33 years. He has never stopped. Not once. Ashley looked toward the rear of the ballroom. You can come forward now. The crowd turned. And in the silence that followed, footsteps crossed the marble floor. Slow. Careful. Waited with 33 years. The elderly man stopped in front of Williams. Neither spoke. The entire room held its breath. Then the old man reached into his jacket and removed a photograph. Faded. Worn at the edges from being handled so many times. A young woman holding a newborn. The day after this was taken, he said, his voice barely holding. You were taken from us. I was told you were gone. I refused to believe it. He looked at Williams. I never stopped looking for you. Not for a single day. Williams stared at the photograph, then at the man's face. The eyes, the jaw, the shape of the forehead. He was looking at himself, 40 years forward. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, the old man said. But if you are willing, I would very much like to know my son. Williams couldn't speak. He crossed the distance between them and held on. The room exhaled. Tears. Applause. The sound of 300 people feeling something real. Ashley let the moment breathe. Then she raised her hand, and the room quieted again. There is one more thing. The applause stopped cold. Something in her voice carried a different weight entirely. Vanessa Morgan did not find my father by chance. She was sent. Every eye moved to Vanessa. She stood near the edge of the stage with nowhere left to go. Her mother's journal was recovered from a storage unit 3 weeks ago. We read every page. Ashley's voice was precise, controlled. The journal names everyone involved in my father's disappearance 33 years ago. It was not an accident. It was not one person acting alone. It was a coordinated act, and it was covered up for decades by multiple people, some of whom are still alive. The ballroom was completely motionless. The journal names those people. Ashley held up a second folder. And this morning, copies were delivered to federal investigators. The silence broke. A sound moved through the crowd unlike anything from before. Not applause, not gasps. Something lower and more serious. The sound of people understanding that what they were witnessing was not just a family story. Then a door at the side of the ballroom opened. 2 men in dark suits entered and moved without urgency toward the stage. Vanessa saw them before anyone else did. She watched them cross the room. Her face went completely still. She did not run. She did not protest. She had known this moment was coming. Perhaps she had known it was coming for years. The men stopped beside her and spoke quietly. She nodded once. But before she turned to go, she looked across the room at Williams. Just him. The noise in the crowd and the 300 watching faces seemed to vanish for a moment. I did love you, she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I know you have no reason to believe that. But it's true. And I am more sorry than I will ever be able to say. Not for getting caught. For what I did to you. For what I helped do to your family. For taking something that was never mine to take. She didn't wait for a response. She turned and walked with the 2 men toward the door, her heels quiet on the marble. The ballroom watched until she was gone. Then silence. Williams stood in the center of the room with his biological father beside him and the ruins of the past year surrounding him. He was found and lost at the same time. Richer in truth and poorer in almost everything else. Then he heard movement from across the room. Sarah stood up. She walked toward him slowly. The crowd parted. Williams watched her come and could not make himself look directly at her. The weight of what he had done pressed against his chest. She stopped in front of him. He forced himself to meet her eyes. Sarah, I am sorry. I know that's not enough. I know I don't deserve. Stop. she said quietly. He stopped. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Not with softness, not with anger, with something more difficult than both. Honesty. You didn't just hurt me, Williams. You looked our children in the face every day and lied. You let Ashley and James watch their family fall apart. That is what I think about. Williams felt the words land exactly where they were meant to. I'm not standing here to forgive you tonight, Sarah continued. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a choice you make over and over again for a long time. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to make it. The room was absolutely silent. But I came here tonight because Ashley asked me to, because James asked me to, and because 31 years of a life together means you at least deserve to hear this from me directly. She stepped slightly closer. The man you were when we built this family, that man was worth loving. I want to know if he still exists. Because if he does, he has a great deal of work to do. She held his gaze. And if he doesn't, then I want you to leave me alone and let me heal. Williams did not look away. He exists, he said. I don't know how to prove it except to try. Every day, for as long as it takes. Sarah studied him. Quiet, careful, unsentimental. Then she nodded once. A small thing, barely visible, but it was something. Charles watched all of it from beside the stage. A man who had searched for his son for 33 years and found him in the middle of the most painful night of his son's life. He did not rush forward. He understood that healing is not a speech or a moment in a ballroom. It is a long, ordinary road. But they were all on it now. Months later, on a warm evening with no particular occasion, the Browns gathered in the backyard. String lights above the table. Ashley laughing with friends near the garden. James carrying out desserts. Sarah moving between conversations with a lightness that had taken a long time to return. Williams stood near the grill. Older, quieter. A man who had learned the difference between the life he thought he wanted and the life that actually mattered. Charles sat beneath the old oak tree, watching everything with the careful attention of someone who knows how quickly things can disappear. Williams walked over and sat beside him. You doing all right? Williams asked. Charles smiled. Better than I have been in 33 years. They sat together for a while without saying anything, watching the family, listening to the laughter. Then Charles spoke. You know what I kept thinking? All those years I was searching for you. What? That the truth has to go somewhere, Charles said. You can hide it. You can lock it in a drawer. You can build an entire life on top of it. But it does not disappear. It just waits. Williams looked at his family. At Sarah, who was rebuilding something with him one careful day at a time. At Ashley, who had refused to stop searching even when he gave her every reason to. At James, who had forgiven a father who hadn't yet earned it. It waited a long time, Williams said. Charles nodded. It always does. The sun went down slowly. The lights above the table glowed warm. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Williams Brown sat still and let himself be grateful for exactly what he had. Not what he had almost thrown away forever. What he still had. If this story moved you, please subscribe and hit the like button. And tell us in the comments. Do you think Sarah should give Williams another chance? Or has too much been broken to rebuild? We want to hear what you think.